So, what is the difference between Etsy and Shopify? Well, there's a lot, if I might add. And what does that mean in terms of the success of your business, or what does it mean to your business altogether? And what does it take to be successful on either or platform? All of those topics and more are what we are going to be covering today. Welcome back, guys. If you're new to the channel, I teach people how to build brands predominantly on Etsy, but also on Shopify. I have been building brands since about 2018, and I've been documenting that journey here the best I can on YouTube. So first of all, what is the difference between Etsy and Shopify? So if you are completely new to e-commerce, or you just learned what e-commerce is, this is a very commonly asked question, so don't feel bad at all. So first off, Etsy is a third-party selling platform where if you go to Etsy.com right now, you can search an abundance of products, an abundance of categories, and purchase the product that you're looking for. Anybody that has a good business idea that fits into the parameters of what is allowed to be sold on Etsy can go open an Etsy shop today and start selling out of the comfort of their home. There is limitations to what Etsy allows, right? If you want to set up an Etsy shop, you technically need to be selling something that is handmade, something that is vintage and over 20 years old, or it is handmade with production assistance. For instance, if you had a formula for some candles that you wanted to sell and a design for some candles, but you didn't actually have the machinery or the lab to sit there and mix candle formula all day long, right? You could go find a manufacturer or a production partner to produce your product idea, and then you would then buy that product, store it in your house, and then ship it to them from your house or your office. Now, another model that is very common nowadays is the print on demand model, which is very similar, where technically you don't actually have to touch the inventory. You can take a sweater like this, design a graphic or an image, and you can put it on a mock-up and then use a third-party selling platform like My Designs that will actually connect you to your production partner, and they will not only make the printed image on the sweater, but they will ship it to your customer for you. So all of these types of things are allowed on Etsy. And Etsy is very similar to, not very similar, but it is similar to Amazon in a sense. When people are going to Amazon, they already have an idea of something that they want to buy in mind. So when they're going to that search bar and typing in vanilla candle, right? It's because they have an intention to purchase. They already have their wallet open. Now, on the contrary, how does this compare to Shopify? Well, Shopify is not a third-party selling platform at all. I think a lot of times the confusion is people think that Shopify is like an Amazon or an Etsy, right? Shopify is actually not similar to those two at all. Shopify helps you build an e-commerce business with their tools, where you can build a e-commerce website through their website builder. It's basically a one-stop shop for building an e-commerce business. Unlike Etsy, where your traffic source is coming from Etsy because people know the Etsy name, when you start a Shopify store, if nobody knows your name, it's likely that nobody's going to come to your website. You actually have to go out and figure out how to bring in your own traffic. And normally that manifests into doing things like media buying. Media buying is things like Facebook ads or Instagram ads or TikTok ads, or doing the organic approach of just posting a lot of content on your own TikTok or on your own Instagram and growing a following that eventually translates into sales. Or getting influencers and paying influencers to wear your items or promote your items on your behalf. On Etsy, you don't really have to do this because Etsy's bringing you your own traffic. So which one is better or worse? Well, the answer to that question is neither. Shopify isn't technically better than Etsy. Etsy is not technically better than Shopify. It's all contingent on you, what type of business you want to open, and what you're selling, because not every product is a fit for Etsy. But let's just make this more visual and let's throw up a chart here of our similarities and some differences. So if we look at the middle here, what are some similarities between Etsy and Shopify? The first similarity that comes to mind is on both platforms, you have to pay a 3% credit card processing fee per every transaction. This is something that you can't avoid when you're processing credit cards or debit cards. You have to pay, it's usually about 3% plus 0.25 cents per transaction. Sometimes it's 2.9% plus 25 cents per transaction. But for the most part, there is a transaction fee. Now, alternatively, to be a seller on Etsy, because Etsy is bringing the traffic, they're gonna charge you a 6.5% seller fee on every single sale. On Shopify, there is no fee, because that fee that you're paying, that 6.5% on Etsy, that fee you're paying is basically going to Etsy because, like I said, Etsy's bringing you the majority of your traffic. Where on Shopify, you have to go out and pay to get your traffic somewhere else. Like we already touched on before, Etsy, because they're a third-party selling platform and people are going to Etsy with their wallets already open, wanting to buy something based off of the keywords that they're typing in the search bar, essentially what that means then, your traffic is normally a lot hotter traffic than, say, if you're running ads to a Shopify store and driving the traffic from Facebook and Instagram, because people aren't going to Facebook and Instagram really with the intention of purchasing something. They're usually going there to mindlessly scroll. So that means that when you're running ads, it's a lot harder to convert cold traffic into paying customers. It's not that it doesn't work or it's impossible. It's just usually a lot more expensive than, say, on Etsy ads or just being on Etsy in general. So historically, it is a lot cheaper to convert a customer on Etsy than, say, Shopify. Now, this obviously is not true 100% of the time, because again, it depends on what you're selling and how viral your products are. But for the most part, it is harder to convert someone to a paying customer on your website than, say, on Etsy. First side of that, your traffic and the amount of traffic that you get on Etsy is limited in a sense, because the amount of traffic that your store gets is limited to the amount of people that are searching for your items. So if you're in a niche where you don't have that many people searching for your items inside Etsy specifically, you could hit a ceiling pretty fast. And then the only way you can scale further is by getting your budget as high as possible on your Etsy PPC, which is usually $1,000 a day. Etsy's gonna cap you off at $1,000 a day. I have way more in-depth videos on Etsy PPC because this is gonna leave you very confused. But the moral of the story is you can hit a ceiling on Etsy a lot faster because you're limited to the amount of searches that Etsy gets per month for those products that you're selling. Where on Shopify, when you talk about running ads on Instagram and Facebook, you have the potential to reach a lot more people. And even though it might be a lot more expensive up front to get that ball rolling, the scalability on a platform like Shopify is way more infinite than Etsy, because you have the potential to reach way more people than just the people that are going to Etsy to buy something. A similarity between the two is on both platforms, they make it extremely easy to fulfill your orders and do customer service. Every time you get an inquiry on a Shopify store, Shopify is actually gonna email you that you got someone filled out your contact form and you got someone asking you a question. Same thing in Etsy. Someone can message you directly in your Etsy account and right away you can see all of your customer service. So they both make it very easy to deal with customer service, and they make it very easy to fulfill your actual orders. So when you get an order in Shopify, you literally click fulfill order and you purchase the label at a discounted rate inside Shopify. And it's the same thing in Etsy. When you get an order, you fulfill the order, you buy the label right there inside Etsy with all of your customers' address information already pre-filled out. It's just a matter of purchasing the labels, printing the labels, and putting it on your packaging. Going back to a huge key difference. when you are selling on Etsy, you are technically not allowed to have your customer information, which you have their name and their address, but a key element to your customer data, you can say, is an email and a phone number. And technically on Etsy, Etsy doesn't just give this information to you, or they don't give it to you in a way that's very easily retrievable, right? On Shopify, arguably, when you have customers coming in, or you have people on your Shopify store signing up for your email list, right? That data and that list of customers is a list that you own. Or on Etsy, technically Etsy owns your data or the list of customers that have purchased from you before. So why is that really important? Because the more people that exist in your list, where then you can recontact them via email or SMS, the more valuable your company becomes. So the rule of thumb with Shopify is that if you have 20,000 people in your email list or 20,000 phone numbers, right? Just from that email list alone, being able to send them emails twice a week or text messages twice a week, right? You should be making $1 per person that exists in your list. So like I said, if you have 20,000 people in your contact list, you should be making at minimum at least $20,000 per month just from that list alone, because it's super hot traffic. If someone came to your website and signed up for your email list, or they spent money with you before, right? That is the hottest traffic, and you collect that traffic in your list. Where on Etsy, you don't technically, you're not supposed to own that list. So there's just a lot more control over owning your own data on Shopify, and a lot more flexibility of what you can do with building brand loyalty through your website than say Etsy, because again, Etsy technically doesn't want you to have your customer data, right? And why is that? Because again, they want that 6.5% that they're gonna get every single time they get a sale inside of Etsy, which it makes sense, honestly, they're a business. When it comes to rules, there is going to be limitations, like I said, of what you're allowed to do with your Etsy customer data versus Shopify. You're allowed to do basically whatever you want in a sense, but there is some laws about how you can send text messages and emails. You can't just send 1,000 text messages a day and spam people, obviously, but it's a key core element to running that Shopify engine. And finally, what's my personal opinion on Etsy or Shopify? Should you do Etsy or should you do Shopify? Now, obviously, if you've seen other videos in my channel, I have a love-hate relationship with both platforms. And my opinion is, if your products are a good fit for Etsy, Etsy is without a doubt going to be easier than Shopify. But the exception to that is if you are naturally a content creator that is comfortable sitting there all day making content, potentially viral content on behalf of your products. If you're that person, Shopify is gonna be a very fun place for you, because really, the brands that are building viral potential products with viral potential content tend to do very, very, very well on Shopify, because Etsy takes care of that traffic problem for you, right? It just makes it a lot easier to keep that engine running, where basically when you max out your Etsy ads and you are turning a pretty decent profit, if you want to make more money, it just then becomes launching more products or making more things to sell. Where on Shopify, not only do you constantly need to be launching products, but to keep that traffic engine coming and flowing, you have to do email marketing, SMS marketing, some type of media buying, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, influencer outreach, and doing organic content, which technically you should be doing all of them if you're a Shopify brand. But like I said, if you can crack the code on Shopify, your potential to become a more national recognized name brand, that potential is going to exist more so on Shopify than Etsy. Guys, I hope you got some value out of this video. If you have any comments or your own opinion about Etsy or Shopify, make sure you're commenting those down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.